Jamil, thank you for joining us here. Can I get your impression on the this outcome that we are now witnessing when Julian is flying from the North Mariana Island to Australia after having pleaded? What is your take?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a very big deal for Julian Assange himself. I think, it's the end of a long saga, and my guess is that the Biden administration will also be happy to put this case behind them. So, in those two senses, this is, I suppose, something to, at the very least, well, maybe something to celebrate. I am concerned about the ongoing implications of this case for press freedom. On one hand, we have averted the worst possible outcome, which would have been a judicial ruling holding that the Espionage Act reaches the mere publication of government secrets and a ruling that the First Amendment doesn't protect that activity. So we've avoided that. On the other hand, we have this plea agreement that is going to essentially have Assange having served 5 years in prison for acts that journalists engage in every day. And I think that is, though it's not a judicially sanctioned precedent, it is a kind of precedent and will cast a long shadow, I think, not just over journalism in the United States, but around the world as well.
What would be the solution for sort of striking against that? What would a pardon do in that sense?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really focused on the implications for press freedom here, and there has been this argument from the beginning that Assange himself isn't a journalist, that WikiLeaks isn't a media organization, and I have said from the beginning that all of that is a distraction because what was in the original indictment are activities that journalists engage in every day and have to engage in every day. And now we will have this formal document in which Assange pleads guilty to having engaged in those kinds of activities, and the government's position is that he has served 5 years in prison for those activities. And I think that that is going to again have implications for journalism going forward, even if the case is essentially closed from Julian Assange's perspective and closed from the Biden administration's perspective.
So he pleads guilty of the crime of committing journalism, and that will have a negative residue.
Of course. I mean, journalists have to ask government officials for secrets. They need to be able to publish those secrets. That's what journalism is. If journalists were required to defer to the government on all factual questions relating to government activity, they wouldn't be journalists, they would be stenographers. If we're going to have journalists do journalism, they need to be able to hold government officials to account. And this case from the beginning has been a threat to that, to that role.
So finally, I mean, what should the institutes like the one that you are representing and others who are actually fighting for press freedom do as a result of this outcome?
Yeah, I mean, I would be very interested to see the actual documents filed in court tomorrow, and I want to think more carefully about the implications of this this agreement going forward. I mean, we may need stronger statutory protections. We certainly need stronger constitutional protections. This question has been kept out of the courts, and I think that that's probably a good thing right now. But one consequence is that there is this gray area in American law that means that journalists who are engaged in important public interest journalism are doing it under the shadow of possible criminal liability. I think that's a terrible thing for not just the journalists themselves, but for the public's right to know as well.
Thank you so much, Jamal, for sharing your insight on this. And
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you.